لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. يا فتاح يا فتاح افتح علينا فتوح العارفين واجمعنا بسيد المرسلين في آجل عاجل يا أرحم الراحمين. So first of all, it's not my place to be here, but Alhamdulillah, our teacher, Sheikh Yusuf Al-Philander, he requested me to be here, and I couldn't say no. And I'll tell you why. Firstly, because you asked me, Jazz, what are you doing till Wednesday? So I said, nothing, Sheikh. Hoping he's going to tell me come read. Let's do something, let's do a book or something. And then he said, I need you to teach for me. So I couldn't turn back. I couldn't say, no, I'm not busy anymore, Sheikh. But generally, I don't like sitting in my teacher's place. But Alhamdulillah, through, al-amr fawq al-adab sometimes, right? So you have to listen to your teacher. The command of your teacher, you must abide by it at times. And it goes beyond adab. So inshallah, Sheikh Yusuf told me that you guys stopped at al-mal qalil wa kathir, meaning abundant water which is a lot, and water which is a little. The guys covered the shurut of wudu, or the furud of wudu, at least. And then he went into udhiyah, seeing that it was hajj. And now we're going back into tahara, which is bab al-tahara. Am I right? You can read that, just this section. Now.
Section: water is either a little or a lot. A small amount of water is that which is less than 2
kullatayn.
A lot of water, that which is 2 kullas, approximately 190 liters or more. A little amount of water will become impure when any impurity falls onto it, even though the water does not change. A lot of water will not become impure except when its taste, color, or smell changes.
So Bismillah, we have to, in this book, the Musannif, rahimahullah ta'ala, wa nafa'allah bi ulumi fi darain, amin, he speaks about water which becomes mutanajjis. So water is basically divided into 3, right? Water which can purify, it's pure in itself, and it can purify, meaning you can take wudu with it, you can take ghusl with it, and you can clean najasa with it. That's one type of water. The second type of water is water which is pure in itself, but it doesn't purify, meaning that you can drink from it, for example, tea. It's a form of water, right? But it's mixed. But you cannot take wudu with it. You cannot clean najasa with it. Nor can you make ghusl with it, right? So it's pure in itself. It's not mutanajjis. It's not impure. There's no impurities in it. But you cannot utilize it for any ritual acts such as wudu, ghusl, and cleaning najasa. Then the third form of water or type of water is mal mutanajjis, water which is impure, or water which has been made impure. So the Musannif rahimahullah ta'ala is speaking about the third category, mainly the third category. We won't speak or delve too much into the 3 categories, because the book after this book, which Sheikh Yusuf will be doing with you, Mukhtasar al-Latif, inshallah, once you complete this book, you will go a bit more in detail. And such is fiqh, right? As it goes, you do it in tadarruj, right? From the primary text, and you work yourself up, right, to the intermediate, into the advanced, etc. So these are one of the basic books. And the book afterwards, you go deeper into the section of water, the chapter of water. And the book after, you go even deeper into this chapter of water. So we're just going to focus on what the Musannif is speaking about. What he's speaking about is water which is mutanajjis, right? So the first thing you need to understand, the author is speaking about 2 types of water. Mal qalil wa kathir. Water which is considered a lot, and water which is considered a little. So we first going to delve into what is, so the author also utilized the term qullah, right? Qullah. So what is qullah? We need to understand what is qullah. What is water? First of all, linguistically, water is something which is transparent, and it becomes colored by its vessel. For example, if this bottle were to be blue, the water will take the color off because it's transparent of the vessel, right? So that is linguistically. As for the Islamic term or the legislative term, it is water. What is kulla? It is a measurement used by the jurists, the Islamic jurists. It's used by them to measure water. Specifically, they use it in different masail, also different other cases, but specifically in this mas'ala, when it comes to water, they use it to measure water. The reason why it was called kulla is because back in the day, there was a vessel, a large vessel. So kulla means a large vessel, right? Kulla means a large vessel. Kullatain is two large vessels because it's due. It's a noun which is due. So kullatain. So kulla is individual, as a munfarid, right? As a mufrad, afwan. So munfarid, afwan. I'm getting confused with terms, right? So kulla is the singular term, and kullatain is the dual form. So they're saying two large vessels. So what large vessels? So like I said, these vessels were found in the olden times where they used to fill it with water, and the person would carry it on his back, and he would pour it from there, right? He would pour it from there. So two kullatains. According to the jurist, the Baghdadi, it's 500 ritl, 500 ritl. So ritl is also a type of measurement amongst the jurists, right? In Islamic, in the jurist term, that's what they utilize, ritl. We don't utilize that anymore. We use liters, we use capacity, we use kilograms, etc. Right? So yes, it is 500 ritl Baghdadiyan, and 565 ritl according to the Tarimis in Yemen. However, if you were to convert that into liters, there will be a difference of opinion. In this book, he said 100 and 100 and now another opinion, they say 217, right? So it would differ because the scholars would differ on what is considered a ritl. How do we measure a ritl? How do we convert a ritl into liters? And not only that, they also differed in what was the measurement of a kulla. What was the exact measurement of the kulla? So the jurists, they don't say that is exactly this amount. They say taqreeban, approximately this, right? So I was taught, for example, is 217 liters. So let's just use 217 liters in today's class, inshallah. So al-mal qaleel is ma duna kullatayn. What do you consider a little water? According to the jurists, it is that which is below kullatayn. It is the capacity which is below, let's say 217 liters. Right? It's below. That is considered mal qaleel. So every amount of water which is below 217 liters, that is considered a little water. And then you have mal kathir. What is abundant water or a lot of water? What is considered? It's when the capacity surpasses 270 liters, right? So now you know the difference. Like the author said, you have water which is either a little, and you have water which is either a lot. So we've now divided into two groups: water which is a little and water which is a lot. And water which is a lot, that has its own rulings, and water which is a little, that has its rulings, right? So to begin with, we are going to speak about al-mal qaleel. Right? Al-mal qaleel, we said, what is it? How do you specify mal qaleel? Water which is a little? It is below the capacity of kullatayn. Let's say, for example, 217. The author in this book, the Shafi, is saying 160, right? So when it comes to water which is a little, let's say, for example, this is definitely below that, right? Everyone with me? This is below 217 or below kullatayn, definitely. This is a 500 ml, am I right? Yeah, 500 ml. The moment najasa falls into this water becomes spoiled. It becomes mutanajjis. You cannot drink from it. Why? Because it's mutanajjis. It's haram for you to drink from it. And you cannot purify yourself with it. Why? Because mutanajjis. Right? There's the third degree of water, which is mutanajjis, it's impure. So if by the moment najasa falls into this water or even touches this water, let's say hypothetically this is a cup, there's no lid on it. The moment najasa touches that water, the water becomes impure. Right? That's because it is below kullatayn, meaning it is less than the capacity which we support, where it surpasses 217 liters, right? So by the moment najasa touches us, and we know that najasa is in 3 degrees, right? Najasa is in 3 degrees. You get mukhaffifa, not going to speak about it today, but there's a first degree, a second degree, which is mutawassita, and mughallala, which is a third degree. So there's 3 degrees. Any of that 3 degrees, if you were to touch this water, it becomes impure. Right? It becomes impure. Khair. Even if it doesn't change the color, the smell, and the taste. Right? By the najasa, by the moment it touches the water, it becomes impure. Whether the color doesn't change, whether the smell doesn't change, whether the taste doesn't change. If you were to remove that najasa, drink it, it will taste like water, but it's still impure. Right? The moment the najasa touches this water, it becomes impure. Now, then you get things which is ma'fuan and ghayr ma'fuan. Right? So we established that we're speaking about what type of water? Water which is below kullatayn. So now we're speaking about what happens if najasa falls in it. We established that najasa, the moment it touches this water, it becomes impure. However, there is mustathna. There is exceptions to the case. Right? There is exceptions to the case. And this is the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has not made the deen difficult, rather has made the deen easy. Right? So, we're going to speak about the exceptions. Number 1, if the hair of something which is najis falls into this water, and it is below 3 hairs, that's ma'afwan. So some of the ulama in the Shafi madhab, they make a qadr, they make a measurement as to this 3 hairs or less. That's ma'afwan. That's overlooked. Beyond that, we cannot overlook it. Right? When I say the hair of something which is najis, what am I speaking about? Besides the dog, besides the pig. So anything which is ghayr ma'akul, an animal which you cannot eat, right? An animal which you cannot eat, which is haram for you to eat, the moment the hair departs from that animal, it's as if it is maita. It's a what you call it, karen. It's like a corpse, right? It takes the ruling of a corpse, meaning it's najis. For example, and this is a touchy subject, the hair of a cat. If it sheds in a Shafi madhab, it becomes najis. Right? If the hair of a cat sheds, in the Shafi madhab, it becomes najis. Right? So, if let's say the hair of a cat, which is more than 3 strands, falls into this bottle of water, it becomes, no, it doesn't become najis. 3 hairs and less, remember? We say 3 hairs and less. Let's say 4 hairs falls in this water, and we take it out. Najasa, by the touching of the najasa, it becomes impure. 3 hairs or less, doesn't become impure. Alright? That's the first thing. Now, so that is one of the exceptions. The second exception would be an-najasa allati la yudriku tarf. It is impurities which the normal eye can't see. Which the normal eye cannot see. What is extracted from that? For example, magnifying glass. Right? Any mechanism which enlarges something, if you use that, and you can see it through that, let's say for example, the fly, the bab, right? The feces of a fly. Generally you cannot see it, right? But if you take a magnifying glass or a microscope and you look and you put it under that, you're going to see it. So that is part of ma'afwan. What the normal eye cannot see, that is ma'afwan. That is the exception to it. So if it were to fall in this bottle of water, I wouldn't make it najasa or mutanajis afwan. I wouldn't make it impure. So anything which the normal eye cannot see is ma'afwan. It's the exception. Now, so if you have very weak eyes, we cannot use that person's eyes to establish that this is something which is the exception to the case, right? We cannot use someone's eyes who is supernatural, let's say for example, is beyond 100. Right? We cannot use his eyes to establish that this is something which is exception to the case. It has to be an eye which is mu'tadil, a normal average eye, right? That's the second exception. The third exception is al-mayta la nafsala. It is something which is dead, right? An animal which is dead, la nafsala, meaning there is no, if you were to remove its limb, you wouldn't find blood spilling, right? So the fuqaha, they say for example a gecko, nothing bigger than a gecko. So they use the gecko as a measurement, a yardstick. Nothing bigger than a gecko. So a cockroach, an ant, etc. All these things, if you were to remove the limb from that insect or pest or whatever it is, you wouldn't see blood coming out. Right? So if that dies, okay, there's also shurut, there's conditions. Right? It's just not mutlaqan, off the cuff, accepted. Right? So we're going to make another example. I'm glad that I brought this water. We have this, let's say we have this 500 ml. Duna kullatain. It's below 2 kullas, right? We're going to use 270 liters. It's below 270 liters. Let's say, for example, we find an ant in here. Remember, any animal which is dead is maita, that hasn't been slaughtered the Islamic way. Any animal that hasn't been slaughtered the Islamic way and it died, it is considered maita, it's najis, right? So an ant, if it dies, becomes najis. And I remember this story, my teacher said, Ahmed, Hafidullah, he related to us that one of the Salihin, Tarim, he placed his turban on and everything, and he made salah and he did his I don't know if it was for a whole day or a whole week, but he made his salah and everything. And when he removed his turban, he found it dead and in the crease of his turban, right? So that would be hanun najasa. You cannot make salah, your salah is invalid if you're carrying something which is najis. And we said and we established that an animal where there is no, it hasn't been slaughtered Islamically is considered najis, right? So we have the ant, we find it dead in this bottle, right? We find it dead. Does this mean that this bottle spilled? No. You just remove the ant, you throw it out. But you remove the ant, making sure that you don't dip it in again. And I'll tell you why. Because when it comes to something which is dead and it does not have, we say the criteria of this specific dead animal, it is smaller than the size of a gecko. And if you were to remove the leg or to remove the leg of that thing or a limb of that thing, you wouldn't find blood running from it. So we're using an ant, for example. All you do is remove it, you throw it away. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not impure. It's still tied. You can make wudu with it. You can drink from it. Right? However, if you were to dip it in again, then it becomes impure. Why? Because there are 3 conditions to this case, to this mas'ala. Number 1, it must have entered by itself. Meaning you didn't put it in there. You didn't see it dead on the side and place it in there. That's number one. That's the first condition. Number two, and with that is whether it is, they also say, for example, a bahima, an animal maybe places in the vessel, or a wind just blows it, right? Or according to Khatib, Imam Khatib should be in, he says, even someone who is ghayr mumayyiz, meaning a child which is not mumayyiz, he throws it in there. Right? A child which is not, everyone knows what is mumayyiz and not mumayyiz. Right? So someone who is mumayyiz is able to eat by himself, drink by himself, and istinja by himself. So if he's ghayr mumayyiz, according to Al-Khatib, even if he comes and he puts it in, or he puts it in there, it doesn't harm the water. Right? That's the first one. It must have fallen into this bottle by itself. Number two, it must have died outside of the water and not inside of the water. Why? Because if you still see it alive, you can just take it out and throw it away. You have that ability. Right? But if you don't do it and you let it die, that means that you had the ability to save it from dying in there, or from it dying in your water, but you didn't. You left it there, right? So it has to have died outside of the water. That's the second condition to this case. The third condition is it mustn't change this water in its sifat, in its characteristics. And we talk about sifat, characteristics of water, we say, speaking about the color of it, the taste of it, and the smell. Right? The color of it, the taste of it, and the smell. So if you have a cockroach, let's say for example, Allah grant us afwa and salama min hada. Allah save us from such stuff. But if you have a cockroach, a dead cockroach, you find a dead cockroach in the water. It's smaller than what? A gecko. It has no blood when you, there is no blood, there's no blood that flows when you remove a limb. It didn't fall in by, it fell in by itself. Number two, what's number two? It died inside the water. Right? Died inside of the water. And now I find that this bottle became maybe a bit yellow. Fahisha, to the extent that it's completely like, right? The moment you see that it changed the color or taste or smell, then it becomes impure, becomes mutanajis. Right? That's how, everyone with me. If I'm going too fast, tell me, you can raise your hand. I want you to understand, inshallah. It's very important. This chapter that you're doing in Tahara is very important. And you're never going to find it in any other religion where you study Islam to such depth. To such depth. Looking at it, and I'll tell you why, because I was making muraja and you know, alhamdulillah, when you giving class, you're sitting with a few books and you're revising, right? And my wife asks me, what are you teaching today? Because you're busy. So I said, no, I'm just teaching, I'm speaking about water today. And she love water. And you're putting so much effort in. So I said, that is the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything is intricate. Everything is intricate. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us understanding, inshallah. So, those are the three things. There is more things which is an exception when it comes to water which is little. There is more things, but you'll do it. I don't want to bring too much up. There's not much time. Khair. Now we're dealing with al-ma'ul kathir. Water which is a lot, considered a lot. And how do we establish that? It's fawqa qullatayn, right? It's more than qullatayn. Let's say 217 liters. So, if najasa falls into, let's use a Jojo tank. Jojo tank beyond that. How much liters is a Jojo tank? The big one. About how much, more or less? 1,000 liters, right? So you have a Jojo tank. And this is a good example. You have a Jojo tank. And najasa falls into it. Do we have the same ruling as we have for water that is little? No, we don't. It's a different ruling. You have to now establish one thing, or three things actually. Did the sifat, did the characteristics of that water change? Contrary to this, right? Water which is little. We said the moment najasa falls into it, it becomes mutanajis. Right? It becomes mutanajis. Except for the exception that we spoke about. As for water, it's not that, right? It's not that quick. You have to first establish, okay, najasa fell into it. Did it change the smell? Did it change the taste? And did it change the color? Walau yasiran, even if it's by a bit, a little, it changed the taste a little, it changed the color a little, it changed the smell a bit, then it becomes mutanajis. Then the water becomes mutanajis. Right? You have to first you have to first look. Okay, did the change smell? So you take the najasa out, the ainul najasa itself, let's say for example it's a rat. Let's say it's a rat. You take the rat out, throw it to one side. You took now the ain, the core of the najasa out, you took the najasa itself out. Now you have a look at your jojo tank. Did the taste smell change? And yes, I know you don't want to taste it, but right, that's how you're going to deduce. Did the taste change? Did the smell change? Did the color change? If any of their characteristics change, walau yasiran, even if it's by a bit, that water is impure. Right? That water is impure. Now, but there is ways to make, or that water becomes again pure. To either make it pure, or it becomes within itself pure. These ways. So let's say, for example, you have a jojo tank, and the color changed a bit. Right? The color changed a bit. What do? Either you leave it and you let it change by itself, meaning you let it purify itself, until a point where you now know, okay, the taste, there's no more taste of that rat, there's no more smell of that rat, there's no more color change due to that rat. Or you bil mukathara. You just throw more water in. Right? You just throw more water in until the sifat goes back to what it was, its default state, its original state. So you just throw water in, throw water in, throw the water until it changes. That's how you purify it. Now, however, if you were to change the jojo tank, which has been changed, the color changed or the taste changed, with other substances that make satr of the smell or the taste, for example, saffron. So you throw saffron in, so you can get the taste, the smell out, or the color out, whatever you want to get out. That doesn't work. Right? And there's discussion of pool, chlorine, and so on. That's for another day, inshallah. It's a long discussion. Okay, so it has to be, it can either purify itself, bil mukth, meaning you leave it, and over a time the change in the color and the smell and the taste will go back to its default state, or bil mukathara, you just throw more water in until it becomes pure, until that original state, it goes back to its original state. Now, okay. Anyone have any questions? All sorted. Alhamdulillah. Either I'm doing a really bad job, that no one wants to ask questions. Okay. Pour water. Okay. Now, very good question. So like I said, water is divided into three types. But if you look at it, if you say water which is mutlaq, when I say mutlaq, it either comes from the the skies, or it springs from the earth. That is pure, that purifies and is pure. Meaning you can take wudu with it even if it's brown. Even if you go to a lake, that lake is black. Right? That lake is green. It has become green, not on the account of you or someone. It has become green on account of just being stagnant, right? Being there, the algae, right? So that doesn't harm. You can take wudu with it. You can rather not drink from it, but you can. It's pure and purifies. Meaning it's pure in its essence. and you can take wudu with it. You can clean najasa with it. Right? You can make ghusl with it. Right? So that both is fine. It comes to it's mutlaq, it's mal mutlaq. Naam. Khair. So there is instances where, let's say for example, urine, where there's no smell, there's no taste, there's no color, it looks just like water. Looks just like water. If you were to throw it in ma'ul kathir, water which is considered fawqa kullatain, which is above kullatain, and we said, like we said, it differs, but 217 liters, let's say. If you throw that urine in there, how do you know, okay, did the taste change? Did the smell change? Did the color change? How do we know? So what does the jurist advises that you must make taqdeer there. You must make a measurement. And what do you use? For the loan, you use the most severe substance which you can compare with. For example, with color, what can you compare it with? With hibr, ink. Right? So they say for loan, for color, you use ink as a comparison. For ta'am, you use vinegar. For taste, you use vinegar as a comparison. For rih, for the smell, you use musk as a comparison. So let's say hypothetically this is a jojo tank. This is a jojo tank. So now you have urine that has no taste, no smell, no color. So what did we say? What do we do in this case? It's actually wajib for you to now to make taqdeer. You need to make a measurement. You need to compare. You know the amount which fell in. Right? You know the amount which fell in. So you have to now compare. Let's say it's a drop of the urine which has no characteristics. It looks just like water, smells just like water, tastes just like water. If a drop were to fall into that jojo tank, so we use the comparison of ink for color. So okay, let's say we put a drop of ink in the jojo tank. Would that change the color? No, it wouldn't. Wouldn't change the color. If you were to put a drop of vinegar, would that change the taste? No, it wouldn't change the taste. If you were to put a drop of musk in it, would it change the smell? No, it wouldn't change the smell. So therefore, the water, the jojo tank remains pure. But what if it was to an extent where if you were to put, let's say, a pot of ink in your jojo tank, obviously it will change. Right? Or you put a pot of musk in your jojo tank, obviously it will change. Or a pot of vinegar, the taste will change. Then that would be impure, even though it tastes like water, smells like water, looks like water. But you made a comparison, right? And it's wajib for you to do that. That is in the case of ma'ul kathir.
What if the color stays the same in the smell maybe stays the same, but the taste not to the extent of vinegar, but still has it, not too.
Walau yasiron. Look, what is applied here, even if it's a little, if it still tastes to the extent, are you speaking about comparing now?
If it's okay or not.
So you're making a comparison. So let's say, for example, any of the sifat, any of the characteristics, whether the taste change or smell, if any of them, even if it's by a bit, like the fuqaha say, walau yasiran, even if it's a little, it still harms the water. It still harms the water. Anyone, you can have all three characteristics changed. You can have two characteristics changed, or you can have one characteristic change. As long as that there is a character that changed within that water, it's considered impure. Right? Okay. If it comes to al-mal qalil, how do you compare? You don't. Let's say, for example, this is a 500 ml. So this is duna kullatain. It's below 2 kullas. If a drop of urine which has no characteristics falls in here. What is this? Mutanajis. Mutanajis. It becomes mutanajis. Now, what happens if it is something tahir? It's pure. Right? Something pure. So there is certain times where, for example, you have water. This is water. I can take wudu with it, right? It's pure in its essence and it purifies. But there's a type of water, which is the second type of water, which is you can purify. It's pure, but you cannot purify yourself. Meaning you cannot take wudu with it. You cannot clean najasa with it. You cannot make ghusl with it. So how do I understand? Let's say, for example, ma'u rose water, where it smell, there's no more smell for it. Maybe it's old rose water. But it's rose water. It's not water, it's rose water. And you have this bottle, right? And rose water falls into it. But it's tired. But how do you know, can I still take wudu with it or not? You also use the comparison method. But now you use characteristics, which is in between, right? You use characteristics which is in between. For example, for the color you use juice. For the color you use juice. For the taste you use pomegranate, and for the smell you use luban. That the reason that you burn on, you utilize that. So you also make a comparison. Let's say, for example, you have this 500 ml, and you throw in its liquid form. It must be luban in its liquid form. If you throw a drop of it in, did it change? If it was, let's say, for example, juice. If it was juice, would it have changed the color completely? No. To the extent where you don't call this anymore water. No. You can still make wudu with it. You can still clean najasa with it. You can still make ghusl with it. Same thing goes for the characteristic of ta'am, of taste. If you were to throw a drop of pomegranate in it, would the taste change drastically? No. And here is a condition that has to have changed like drastically, like a lot. If it's just a bit, to the extent, let's say you have a tea bag, right? You have a tea bag and you dip it in for a few seconds, you take it out. But now the color changes a small bit, but not too much. Not too much to the extent where you can't call this water anymore, right? Then it still becomes, it can purify, and it's pure in itself, and it can purify. But if you leave that tea bag in for 5 minutes, and it turns red, it's rooibos, turns red. Now it's not anymore water, is what? It's rooibos tea, right? It's rooibos tea. So you cannot take wudu with it, but you can drink it, it's pure in itself. Now, so that is just a basic overview of what the Musannif is speaking about. We did speak about a bit of things beyond what the text is telling us about. However, in the book afterwards, in Mukhtasar al-Latif, you'll go more in depth. You'll go more in depth with this when it comes to water. Right? You'll learn about the 3 types of water, and you'll learn about water which is musta'mal, how does it become musta'mal. You will learn about mushammas, which is makruh, right? To utilize, etc. So this is just a general understanding of the bab. I think the next bab is mujibat al-ghusl, that which necessitates ghusl. There's 6 things. But inshallah, I won't overdo my time, inshallah ta'ala. I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us. I know there was a second class. Actually, he didn't tell me about the second class, Aqidah. He's not here. He didn't tell me about the class. So I won't be teaching the class, inshallah. So this would be, it only be till the fiqh, it won't be the fiqh class, it won't be the Aqidah class. Now, is there any questions? Afwan? Yes? No, you cannot. It becomes musta'mal. You can utilize it for, look, it's pure itself. You can cook with it, whatever. But the wudu, the water in itself, you cannot utilize it for ritual practices like cleaning najasa, or performing wudu again, or performing ghusl. It becomes musta'mal, it's used. So you cannot utilize it again for a ritual practice, a ritual bathing or ablution or clean, removing of impurities, etc. But in itself, it's pure. It's pure. Now, the bab of tahara is very important. As the Prophet ﷺ said, tahara shatrul iman. That cleanliness is half of iman, of your faith. And the Prophet ﷺ also said, tahara miftah al-salah. Tahara, cleanliness, is the key to your salah, your prayer. Was salah miftah al-jannah. And your prayer is the key to Jannah. So he does it also, the tahara. And beyond all this, you won't find a religion which studies Islam or things like this in such depth. And cleanliness plays a good role. It plays a massive, important role in Islam. As a Muslim, it plays an important role. It's very such that the Salihin say you should always be in a state of wudu. The person who is in a state of wudu and the person who is not in a state of wudu are two different people. The person who is not in a state of wudu is more receptive to shaitan. Right? And it's even to such an extent when you make ghusl, let's say for example, you need to make ghusl. You had intercourse, for example, and you make ghusl, it's makruh for you to go sleep. It's makruh for you to eat. Makruh for you to prolong it. As the ulama say that you're more receptive to shaitan. Meaning shaitan clings more onto you. The shayateen, the jinnat, they cling more onto you if you're in a state of impurity. So purity plays a big role, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He loves those who purify themselves. Not only the external but the internal. And to have two aspects in Islam. We have the external purification and we have the internal purification. But when it comes to things like this, like tahara, wudu, ghusl, it has both. You externally cleaning yourself and you internally cleaning yourself. It has a spiritual aspect and an external aspect. So tahara is very important, and to become an optimal Muslim. And that is the goal of every Muslim, to become an optimal Muslim. Right? To worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the best that you can. Not only to make your 5 times a day salah, only take wudu when you must make salah. That is the bare minimum. As a Muslim, you have to strive to become optimal. Staying in a state of wudu, not prolonging your state of janaba, of being in a state of janaba. Make your ghusl as soon as possible. Do not eat, do not sleep until you made your ghusl. To such an extent, and say that my teacher, when we did the bab of ghusl, he spoke about, he narrated a story that happened in Madinatul Munawwara, Jazul Baqi. This man, he was a very pious man. He made his salah, he was all the awqat, he was in the masjid, he read Quran, made his tahajjud, he fasted a lot, everything. When he passed away, they wanted to bury him. They wanted to bury him. Right? And when they dug the hole, they tried to make him face the Qibla. They tried to make him face the Qibla. Couldn't face the Qibla. Every time they put him on his side, his body automatically turned to the other side. Every time they put him on his side, his body turned to the other side. Out of the direction of the Qibla. And they buried him as is. And afterwards they asked his wife, we know him as such a person. The Dayin, he's religious, he's pious, he fasts, he's all the time, all the awqat, he's in the masjid. What did he do? What happened that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed him in the state? And she cried and he said, I cannot remember anything. Except for one thing. That every time we had intercourse and he had to wash himself, he had to make ghusl, he would say something. And the man asked what he would say. He said that every time he would complain, if only I could have been a Christian, then I wouldn't have to make ghusl. If only I were a Christian. Right? So Allah A'lam, Allah forgive him. and have mercy on him. Allah have mercy on all of us. But tahara plays has an important role in a Muslim's life. And it plays a big role. May Allah grant us the understanding. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open for us the doors of knowledge and open up for us the doors of purification internally and externally. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us understanding of His deen. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us love for His deen. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us love for the sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وآخر دعوة الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى الفاتحة لحضرة النبي. جزاكم الله خيرا.